and you look at the Raiders' offensive depth chart and you go, okay, there's some really good, serious pieces there. There are guys that have won football games. If Jimmy Garoppolo stays healthy, we know he's a winning quarterback. It's like, okay, you can start to see it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have an update on Raiders Josh Jacobs. Plus, the NFL media is hyping the Raiders out of nowhere. What does this mean? What could possibly happen as the Raiders enter week 3 in preseason against the Dallas Cowboys? There's so much to talk about. Make sure you subscribe to WiFiWillie Raiders for more content. So we have an update on Josh Jacobs and his situation with the Raiders. I'm going to spell out the 5 possibilities with Josh Jacobs right now. The 5th one is very unlikely. So we're going to break this down just so everybody knows what are the options. But first of all, the Colts have granted running back Jonathan Taylor the availability to seek a trade. Taylor is not on the tag. He is still on his rookie contract with the Indianapolis Colts. So this provoked the Raiders to speak out in the media and let everybody know they will not trade Josh Jacobs. But we should take note of the fact that the Raiders decided to say this out of nowhere. What is the meaning behind this and why are they doing this? Pro Football Talk is claiming that the Raiders could be trying to conjure up a market for Josh Jacobs because we have learned there are teams interested in trading for Jonathan Taylor. So maybe some other teams would be interested in trading for Josh Jacobs if they could not grab Jonathan Taylor. Now here's the problem with all that, and let's lay out the 5 possibilities here. Either 1, Josh Jacobs could just play on the tag and show up. 2, the Raiders could rescind the tag, making Josh Jacobs a free agent. They would clear up all that cap space. Or 3, Josh Jacobs could hold out and forfeit his salary this year. He could quite possibly come back by week 8 and just make the remaining half of his salary. But he would be missing the game checks for the first 8 weeks. 4, Josh Jacobs could be traded by the Raiders. The Raiders could trade Josh Jacobs for whatever they want to trade him for. But he technically has a no trade clause because he still has to sign the tag in order to be traded. And because that July 17th deadline already passed, he cannot negotiate a long-term contract with any team in the NFL as long as he's on that franchise tag. The only way he'd be able to do that is if he was a free agent and the tag was rescinded. But as long as he has that tag there, as long as he has to sign it in order to be traded, he pretty much is stuck on that 1-year deal unless the team wants to give him a bonus on top of the 1-year deal like the Giants did with Saquon Barkley. So those were the 4 likely options. The 5th option, which is unlikely but does add some spice to this and does add to the fact that Josh Jacobs may know his value around the league. Because Josh Jacobs signed a non-exclusive franchise tag, he could technically talk to other teams right now. Prior to July 17th, he would have been able to negotiate a long-term contract with these teams. He could still negotiate and talk to them because he is on a non-exclusive franchise tag. If this team offered him a contract that he likes, then the Raiders would have to match it. And if they did not match it, then that team would have to send them 2 first-round picks in order to retain Josh Jacobs. This is obviously not a likely option because no team is going to give up 2 first-round picks for a running back like that. And as of right now, any team that trades for Josh Jacobs, even under this non-exclusive franchise tag rule, they would only be getting him on a 1-year, $10.1 million contract because July 17th has passed. But the key takeaway from that is that he's been able to negotiate with other teams. It's not a likely scenario, but because he's on the non-exclusive franchise tag, he could talk to people and find out how much they would pay him, how much they value him, how they'd use him. And this is kind of crazy because it's not breaking the tampering rule and it's allowing him to know his value around the NFL, and maybe it's adding to his frustration right now. So the top 4 options are more likely. He plays, he holds out, the Raiders are able to maybe trade him somewhere and he plays on the tag there, or they resend the franchise tag and make him a free agent. And it seems like a steep price for a team to trade for Josh Jacobs right now and have to have him on a 1-year, $10 million franchise tag, wait to negotiate with him next offseason, and then you got to give the Raiders draft picks for him. So I think teams may just wait out and see if the Raiders rescind the tag on this guy so they can save that $10 million in cap space. Plus, if you're this other team, you also have to make sure Jacobs actually wants to play for you. If he's not down to play on the tag for the Raiders, are you sure he's going to be down to play on the tag for you? So I honestly think the Raiders in the media right now are trying to make it look like they've been trying hard with Josh Jacobs. We've shown all the receipts before on all of our Josh Jacobs videos. The Raiders made a last-ditch effort around July 17th, right before the deadline, to make it seem like they wanted a long-term long-term deal with this guy, when prior to that we've been hearing from Jacobs' camp that there have been no talks. And it seems like they just tagged this guy because he broke the record on the Raiders last year, and they're not really into paying running backs big time money. So I anticipate they're trying to get the fan base ready for them to rescind the tag, and they're going to try to put the onus on Josh Jacobs. Oh, we said we never wanted to trade him. Oh, we've been trying to make it work with a long-term contract. We tagged him because we really wanted him here, but he's just not showing up. And perhaps they're just trying to get everybody ready for them to pull the plug. But one thing you should not pull the plug on is the Raiders going to the freaking Super Bowl this year, dude. It's hosted in Las Vegas, don't you know? And I love paying attention to what the media is saying, who they're hyping up. I think it does mean something. And they're hyping up the Raiders right now, just putting the thought out there that they could win the Super Bowl. One of the reasons being is the pass rush.
And you look at the Raiders' offensive depth chart and you go, okay, there's some really good, serious pieces there. There are guys that have won football games. If Jimmy Garoppolo stays healthy, we know he's a winning quarterback. It's like, okay, you could start to see it. You know, Max Crosby, Tyree Wilson, who just got on the field recently, and Chandler Jones looking to have a bounce-back season. Those guys have got to play out of their minds. And when you start to do that, now you start to cover up some things.
So you have national media talking about the Raiders and just putting the thought out there that maybe they could surprise some people. Maybe they could be the team that beats the odds. They have playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. They have a great defensive line and a lot of depth there. And yes, last year was a disaster, but it was a lot of one-score games, a lot of double-digit leads blown, and I think maybe Josh McDaniels wasn't trying to go for the home run because he wanted to move on from that quarterback. So now we have a non-tanking genius Josh, and I think expectations should rise. The Raiders won 6 games last year. The stock is low, but a lot of people don't really know why we lost. They didn't watch the games like we all did. And we all know it was a weird season, and you have, even though Good Morning Football is hyping up the Raiders right now, you have BetMGM and a lot of the gamblers still having the Raiders at 6.5 wins. The majority of people think the Raiders are only going to win about 7 games. And it does make sense because they have an incredibly tough schedule. You're still in the AFC. There's so many other teams that you could see winning the freaking AFC conference other than the Raiders. But this is the NFL. Crazy things happen all the time, and I'm seeing the media put some things out there, a little hint here and there. And then I'm seeing the odds of the Raiders not rated too highly. And then I'm seeing a lot of people not really knowing why the Raiders did poorly last year. And it was not because they were not in football games. They were in a lot of games and could have easily gone to the playoffs. The NFL Network is putting the emphasis on the defensive line, but there are some issues right now. Chandler Jones has been out for 10 days. Josh McDaniels is saying that he's hopeful that he's getting closer. And if the Raiders want to have a great D-line, they're really going to need this guy. But in the meantime, they have somebody else getting healthy. And that is Tyree Wilson. He's about to transition into getting the pads on. I'm not sure if we're going to see this guy in preseason, but Josh McDaniels is saying that it's heading in the right direction with Tyree Wilson. So if Chandler Jones is not going to be available, at least it's good that they got this guy coming back. And PFF has the most impressive backups from week 2 of preseason, and none other than Aiden O'Connell, AOC, AC4, AO4. You let me know what this guy's nickname is going to be. Drop it in the comments below. But this guy is one of the highest rated preseason performers yet again. 11 for 16 pass attempts, 163 yards against the Rams, 1 big time throw, 2 touchdown passes, and 0 turnover worthy plays. And you also have the safety Chris Smith II rating really well on 48 snaps, 71 PFF grade, along with Drake Thomas with a 74.9, and the big tackle McClendon Curtis with a 92.8 grade, but only 15 snaps there. Either way, it'll be interesting to see what the Raiders do. The season is right around the corner. Let me know how excited you are in the comments below. My name is WiFiWillie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.